Hello everyone and welcome to Hutch's Garage for episode 13 of my 1954 International Harvester Farmall Super MTA tractor restoration. In this episode we will have a first look at the torque amplifier and show how the transmission works. Please note that this video footage was made earlier in the year.
I've taken off the belt pulley unit, which sat right here where this cardboard is. I put this cardboard in here to cover up the front part of the transmission so I don't get any dirt in there while I'm working on the rest of the tractor. What I'm going to do now is take the cover plate off the torque amplifier clutch, and the PTO drive gear that covers that. It's right here. There's 15 bolts that hold this particular cover on. This cover here is the inspection plate for the torque amplifier clutch. If you take this off, you really can't do much other than just look in there. So now I'm going to take off these bolts that I've already loosened up, put them in a pile over here. It takes a 9/16 inch wrench to get these bolts out. They're all the same size. I believe it's 3/8 by, looks like about 1 3/4 inch. This is the last one. Let's see if I can find a place to, I believe it's starting to work loose. It's a little stubborn. Really don't want to pry everywhere around here. This corner. It's coming. I believe I got it now. Obviously the gasket destroyed itself anyway. Like I said, this clutch cover is bolted in to the cover that covers everything. So, what are we looking at? This is the clutch for the torque amplifier. The throwout bearing is right there. Here's the pressure plate. The clutch is right there. And this is the gear that drives a larger gear that goes through the tractor all the way to the rear end to the power takeoff unit. Takes a good bit of pressure to get this, so I'd have to put the handle on and work it. There you can see one of the planetary gears right there on the torque amplifier. And of course it's in neutral. And it's in direct drive because the clutch is released and is contacting this. When you go into torque amplifier mode, essentially what goes on, this clutch will open up and there's some one-way rollers in there, and it'll grab a hold of a shaft and the planetary gears will start coming into action then. Let me get a light. There you can see a little bit better inside the torque amplifier. With the clutch engaged, in other words direct drive, the planetary gears do not turn. They just travel with the whole unit. There's oil in this cavity here. Like I say, I've never been into this area of the tractor. In fact, I've never torn an Model M International down at all. And of course, this is the Super MTA, and there's the TA. To take the clutch out, you got to have some clips that clamp and hold these fingers some way. I have to read the book to study up on that better, but there are the nuts. I'm not sure if this clutch has ever been replaced or not. Just looking from the outside, there's plenty of thickness there, so it may be in good shape. If I can rig up a way to release it and take a good look at it that way, I can look at the pressure plate and this clutch surface right there without having to take it out. You can see it move a little bit when I turn the shaft backwards, the main shaft. Now if I turn this, which is separate, on a separate spline, this turns all the time when the engine is running. And you might be able to see that gear down in there. I'm not sure on this video if you can see it or not, but anyway, it's down below and I can see the gear, and you can see it bringing up the oil, the upper gear. The lower gear sits in oil. It's the shaft is pretty much fully submerged on the shaft going to the PTO through the tractor. There are O-rings in here and seals that you have to worry about when you replace it, and when you take it out you should replace them. Looks like I've been getting grease. There's plenty of grease over there to the throwout bearing. And I can't really inspect it very well from here. I could take it out. Alright. Now we know what it looks like. What I'm going to do now is show how the operation of the transmission, torque amplifier, and the drive gears for the power takeoff work. I've taken the belt pulley drive off and the cover for the torque amplifier system, and now we'll be able to look in and see how that happens. I've also got one of the tires jacked up over here, and we can demonstrate the different gear changes. And how I'm going to drive all this, I've got the friction part of the clutch, these four surfaces here, on this front shaft. That's how I'm going to turn everything. Okay, now I've got everything in neutral. I want to point out a few gears here. As far as the belt pulley drive system goes, this is the gear that drives the belt pulley. When the belt pulley is not engaged, the gear sits in this position. And then when you engage the belt pulley drive, it meshes with this gear right there. This gear and this gear are connected on the same shaft and are part of the torque amplifier output shaft. It's part of the secondary sun gear concerning the torque amplifier. So when the clutch is out, this gear is turning all the time, and it meshes with the gear down below. Also, when the clutch is out, you'll see a pinion gear in the back. That's the reverse pinion. It's two gears on one little shaft, and you can see the shaft down that area there. Okay, so there's that. So I've got everything in neutral right now, so I'm going to turn the input shaft with that clutch, and you can see everything turning. As these two gears here operate, you can see the lower gear is down in oil, and it's picking up oil and bringing oil up to this top gear here, and as it spins, it will throw oil all around, splash it around when the engine runs at fairly fast speed. So as you can see the rest, you can also see the reverse pinion gears turn also in the back. So let's put it in reverse gear. See the gear in the back move? Okay, it's in reverse. So let's turn all of that. And you can see the wheel is turning in reverse also. And you can also see the torque amplifier will be turning. Okay, I've got the torque amplifier in direct drive right now. So now, let's shift into neutral. You see that? That's back to neutral right there. Going into first gear. Let's show first gear. So let the clutch out and the gears are spinning in there. You see the gear set turning and the wheel is turning also. Back to neutral. Go to the middle and try to find second gear. There we go, into second gear. And the wheel is turning. Now let's place it into third gear, which is straight back. There's the wheel turning. Okay, that demonstrates third gear. Go back to neutral. Let's go over to fourth gear. You'll see this gear move this time. There's the wheels turning. So let's stop. Go back to neutral. I'll just prove that going like this. Now I want to point something out. This gear here, you see these teeth right there? They will, when we go into fifth gear, it will go into what's called direct drive on this particular shaft. Before, this shaft was at reduced speed depending on what gear you were in. But now when we go into fifth, it'll engage this inner teeth inside underneath this gear right there. Let's see if I can get that back a little bit better to show a little more light on that. See down in there? There are teeth right inside there, cut out. Let's go to fifth gear. Okay, it's engaged. And now it's in direct drive. I can feel it. It takes a little bit more effort to get things moving. And the wheel turns a little faster. So that's how that works. Let's go back to neutral, just show that. We're back in neutral. Now, for demonstrating the torque amplifier, I'm going to put it back in 5th gear. Move this back to here. These are the planetary gears on the torque amplifier. This is the carrier. The carrier turns at the same speed that this piece here does, this carrier, where the clutch is. This clutch surface here, there's the clutch right there, the material on this side and this side. Here's the pressure plate, and then the throwout bearing is down in there. We're in direct drive right now. So I'm going to turn this, and you will see that the whole carrier turns, and the planetary gears stay stationary. And the planetary gears, I'll describe a little bit more as we go farther. Okay, so here we go. We're in direct drive, so normal operation. As you can see, the planetary gears turn with the carrier. Now there's an overrunning clutch in here when we disengage a clutch, and then we'll see what happens there. Also, the torque amplifier is being oiled by a trough that has an oil level slightly higher than the rest of the transmission oil level. And how it is filled, there's a hole back down in there that comes from the main transmission side, and oil will fill up and go down in that area there, and there's a little small cavity that goes in to that hole that fills up the torque amplifier cavity. And if it overfills, it just goes back into the transmission. So again, that's direct drive. Now, if I pull the torque amplifier lever back, it's catched right there. This is in direct. Now we're in torque amplifier mode. You're going to see things change a little bit. You'll see that the carrier does not turn, but the planetary gears start turning. Okay? As I turn the main shaft, it's turning the primary sun gear inside the torque amplifier, which, let's see if we can barely see it down in there. And you can also see the secondary sun gear. And the planet gears eventually turn that secondary sun gear at a reduced speed. The gear reduction is 32.5%, which the speed of the shaft going out is 62.5% of what the input sun gear, or the primary sun gear, is turning at. In other words, if the primary sun gear or the engine is running at 1,000 RPM, the secondary sun gear is driving the transmission at 676 RPM. Now there's an overrunning clutch. And if you'll notice that the carrier, the clutch carrier, is also not turning. Now if I stop and I can push on this and overcome the overrunning clutch, and I can turn it. Okay, I just want to demonstrate that. So that's how that works. So we're in 5th gear, things turning. I'm turning the input shaft about the same. Let's go into direct drive. I've released it. Now the carrier is going to turn. The wheel should go a little bit faster. So now if the tractor RPM is 1,000 RPM, that carrier is also turning at 1,000 RPM. So that's how that works. Again, going in torque amplifier mode, push the lever back, you can see the clutch disengaged a little bit. There's the clutch turning by itself, but not the carrier, and then you see the planetary gears turning. Now what I'm going to do is demonstrate the power takeoff input shaft. So what I'm going to do is, on almost all the M tractors, they have a shaft about this size, right there. I'm going to take this clutch off and lay it down. So on an M tractor and a Super M, you just have this shaft here. The inside of this area looks a little bit different. Let's get some more light on the subject here. Okay, there's a throwout bearing there. So this is the input shaft from the engine, from the clutch. And that, when you push the clutch in, this will stop. This shaft here is connected also to the flywheel. It's connected to a spline on the pressure plate. And whenever that engine is running, this shaft is turning all the time. So anytime the engine is running, this shaft right there is turning. If the clutch is disengaged, in other words, you got your foot on the clutch, this will stop, but this will always be turning. What that turns is a gear, a little more light, will be turning this gear right there. That is the drive gear for the independent power takeoff system. And it turns a gear, as you can see down below, it's turning. This top gear is 1/2 the size of the bottom gear approximately. I don't know the exact number right now because I have not counted the teeth. But anyway, that bottom gear is connected to the shaft that goes all the way through the tractor, through various couplings and so forth, to the independent power takeoff clutches in the back of the tractor. So that's how that works. Now, there's two reasons I took this cover off. Mainly I want to inspect this clutch on the Torque Amplifier. The other reason is just to look at this gear here. Well, I grabbed the shaft that turns all the time, and I don't know where you notice it, but that gear moves. That is not supposed to do that. That tells me the bearings are starting to wear abnormally, more than they should be. So what I'm going to do is eventually remove that, and then when I remove that, they will give me access to inspect the clutch. Everything I've seen on the Torque Amplifier so far tells me that it's in good shape. It operated fine, never had any problems with it. I'll be checking a couple clearance things, but I don't think I'm going to have to get into the Torque Amplifier, but I do think I need to remove this shaft that this gear is on, and check the bearings and probably replace them, what it looks like to me. And when I do that, there's an O-ring just inside here and a seal, plus there's a seal back here that I'm going to have to take care of. So that's what I'm going to be doing. That'll be one of the next things I do, along with finishing work on the engine. What I'm going to do now is remove the clutch throwout bearing, shaft, and yoke for the throwout bearing. So here's the throwout bearing. Here's the input shaft. This is the power takeoff drive shaft. And I need to get to 2 bolts that are there. The nuts are underneath. So what I'm going to do is pull it all the way forward. I'm going to try to do this with one hand. See if I can get that on there. much room. Huh. Okay, I've got the 2 bolts out. Let's see if we can pull this shaft out. It does move without any trouble at all. At least to that point. Let's see, I see it. What is that? Alright. Okay, those 2 washers are going to have to come out. They're kind of like something like a Woodruff key, and the bolts go through that. So get a screwdriver, see if that does it. Alright, there's one. Of course, that'd be one that does not want to come out. Alright, what I'm going to do is probably take a hammer and tap the screwdriver to pull that down. Alright, I've got those 2 washers out, so I'm going to pull the clutch shaft out. There it is going out. So that is released. Lift that up. So those washers go in between those slots. So that'll be fun to put back together. Alright, there's my access to the power takeoff gear and shaft, and that's what I'm planning to take off next. There's 3 bolts, 1 underneath and 2 on top.
That's all the time we have for in this episode. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Please continue to join me for the next episode as I restore and rebuild this 1954 International Harvester Farmall Super MTA tractor.